Hey everyone, it's Heather. Welcome back to my channel. Jolene says hey as well. Today I am going to be doing my September wrap up. I read quite a lot this month. Is that good? Most of the books that I am going to be talking about, I read as part of my 17 books in 18 days vlog. Obviously, because I only read 16 books this month, you can tell that I didn't get there. Other than two, so I'll talk about those two first, and then if you have watched that vlog, feel free to check out of the video while I talk about the rest of the books that I have here. So this was a weird month for reading. I read 3 2-star thrillers, which is shocking to me. I don't know if I've ever read a 2-star thriller before. But the first one that I read was The Troop by Nick Cutter. This is a story about a Boy Scout troop that goes to this island for like a weekend camping trip, whatever. And a hungry man comes to their camp and chaos ensues. It's basically a pandemic where you eat and eat, not a pandemic, it's like a illness of some sort. It gets into body horror and there's interpersonal stuff happening between the boys, and I just thought it was shit. There's like a sort of plot twist with one of the characters. I just couldn't get behind it. I thought it was needlessly gory. I totally see why people like it. You know, it's commenting on diet pills, but for me, I gave it 2 stars. The second book that I read that wasn't part of the vlog was The Whisper Man by Alex North, and I was pleasantly surprised by this book. I gave it 4 stars. There's a small town where a serial killer had been tormenting the town and like whispering in little kids' windows before kidnapping and killing them, and it's like 20 years later or something, and it's starting to happen again, and we're following a father and a boy who have just moved to this town, and the whispers start happening for this little boy, but he's also mourning the loss of his mom and having potentially some psychological issues, so you don't know if it's actually happening or if it's, you know, his grief coming out in hallucinations. It wasn't like a twisty, turny kind of thing. Like, I wasn't surprised by the plot twist, plot reveal, whatever. But I was like really moved while reading it, and I cried while reading it, and I was not expecting that from a thriller. Granted, maybe I was hormonal and stressed out at the time, but still, I don't think I've ever had a thriller make me cry. So I gave it 4 stars. I fully recommend it, but I recommend it with the caveat of maybe don't go into this looking for huge plot twists, huge plot reveals. It's just like more of a suspenseful story. The rest of the books that I'm going to talk about are all from that vlog, so if you watch the vlog, feel free to tune out. I won't be offended. The next book that I read was Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This was a 5-star prediction for me. I was so excited to read it, and I ended up only giving it 3 stars. So I loved the first half of the book. It's a story about a young girl named Kaya who grows up in the marsh of Outer Banks of North Carolina, and then side by side we're getting a murder mystery that happens like 15 years in the future or something. I loved Kaya's story, and I also thought that the murder mystery was interesting. I loved the general structure of the story and the writing of the marsh and the writing that wasn't dialogue. I didn't love the dialogue. I did not like the ending whatsoever. And the reason that I put it as a 3-star and not a 4-star was because of the ending. I can see why people would love it, but I was just like, come on. Again, totally understand why people like it so much. So the next 2 thrillers that I gave 2 stars were Lock Every Door by Riley Sager and Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and I'm going to talk about them together because some of the issues that I had with both of them. So Mexican Gothic is a story about Noemi. It's set in 1950s Mexico. Her cousin just got married, and she wrote a letter to Noemi asking her for help, asking her to come to save her. Noemi goes, and something's wrong with the house, something's wrong with the family. Shit goes down. Lock Every Door is about an apartment center who is being paid this crazy amount of money to stay at this really ritzy place. She's so excited, but there's all these weird rules about staying there, and then apartment centers start to go missing one by one and shit goes down. So the main issue, I had issues with them separately, which I'll talk about too, but the main issue that I had was the inconsistency of the characters' actions. And it's not about characters being flawed, but it's about characters being smart enough to make better decisions, and them being smart is portrayed as like one of their personality traits. It's like integral to their character. And in both of these, the main character made choices that I was like, they wouldn't have. Like, this was done purely for the plot, and that's not believable writing. And separate from that, Lock Every Door, just the ending was frustrating and annoying to me because it just annoyed me. I just didn't like it. I don't know what to say. I would love to talk about it because so many people loved it and I didn't, clearly, and I want to hear arguments for why I should like it. And then the issues that I had with Mexican Gothic, aside from those that were shared with Lock Every Door, is that it had none of Mexican culture. I didn't love the writing style. It felt clipped. There were inconsistencies that I couldn't see through to enjoy the plot or the atmosphere. So, 2-star thrillers. I didn't really expect to like the troupe, but I did expect to love Mexican Gothic, and I expected to like Lock Every Door. So, just goes to show. I don't know myself, I guess. The next book I did like, thankfully, and it was Cantoras by Carolina de Robertis, and this is, I don't know what she's doing. This is a story about 5 women in Uruguay in the 1970s who are all queer in some way, and they find a little stretch of beach that's like their safe haven, and you follow them throughout like 30 or 40 years as they go to this safe haven, and then they navigate their lives back in the city, and it's under a dictatorship, and being gay or politically active is basically a death sentence. And it was just a really beautiful and poignant story, and it was a really interesting look into a culture of queerness that isn't American, because I feel like, you know, we hear a lot about queer culture in America, but I haven't read a lot about queer culture in other countries, especially during a dictatorship. It was just a very harrowing but hopeful read, and I really enjoyed it. I give it 4 stars. And then I read the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th volume of the Saga series. I'm not going to go into what these are about because spoilers, but I gave Saga Volume 3 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, and 4 stars. And I'm realizing that the books, or that the volumes that I loved the 2nd and the 5th volumes the most, are the volumes where it's not just like the action. Someone important dies and there's like heartache or people are separated. I guess I'm just a slut for sadness, I don't know. The next book that I read was Weather by Jenny Ofill, and this was me trying to be smart and trying to like the award-winning books, and I ended up giving Weather 3 stars. This is a story about a woman named Lizzie who's a librarian. She starts responding to emails from her mentor's podcast about basically the end of the world. In taking on this job, she starts thinking about like basically the shittiness of the world as it is right now. She talks about Trump, climate change, and all of these things, and she's finding it harder and harder to be hopeful. It was fine. It was fine. I don't have much else to say about it. The next book that I read was a reread for me, and it's Red Seas Under Red Skies by Scott Lynch. This is the 2nd book in the Gentleman Bastard series. I love the Gentleman Bastard series. I think each book has a 4-star rating for me, and that was true on a reread for this one. Again, not going to say what the plot is for spoilers, but I highly recommend this series as a whole, and I will be continuing to reread the 3rd book after this in hopes that the 4th one comes out soon. Like, when is it coming out? The next fantasy book that I read was The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This is a story about a war orphan named Ren who works her ass off and gets into a really prestigious military academy, but she faces a lot of prejudice from her classmates because she is from the South and poor and an orphan, and we kind of watch her navigating through the academy and working really hard and proving herself. As she goes through her schooling, she realizes she may be different in other ways from her classmates, and then we explore her understanding of herself and her abilities through the academy and then throughout the war that follows between her country, Nakara, and Mugen. Initially, after reading this, I thought the writing was great. I thought there were some parts that were repetitive a little bit, and Ren kind of like cartwheels between 2 extremes of moral opinion, which bothered me, but I do think that it's setting up for the series to be a study of the moral gray area within somebody who has the power to change the world. I'm really looking forward to the next book in this series because it ended on a cliffhanger like no other, and I'm excited to see Ren's character growth and development and where it goes from where she ended this book. 4 stars. Next book that I finished, I loved, and that was Wundersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow. This is the 2nd book in the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. If you haven't read the first one, it's basically about a little girl named Morrigan who is cursed, but finds that she also has abilities that make her special, and she is swept away to a society called Nevermore with her patron Jupiter North, and she tries to get into a society where she will hopefully be valued for once in her life. And in this, she is not valued for once in her life. She is in her first year of schooling and is continuing to experience bullying and being ostracized. There's a lot of similarities between this and the Poppy War, and that was like a serious dark, and this was like fun and whimsical. I loved it so much. I love Morrigan, and I love the friendships that she's making. I love Jupiter North. I love their relationship. I had some hesitations after reading the first one, but after this one, I'm like, I'm here for Nevermore. I want to reread it now. It was so cute. And then on a totally different wavelength was The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen. This is a story about a Midwestern family. The whole plot centers around the mother, Enid. She wants all of her kids are grown up, and she wants them to come back for one last Christmas because her husband has Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and is like slowly disintegrating. And so she wants all of her family together. She is not happy, and then it's just like a little picture into each of their lives, throughout their lives, but focusing around coming back together for Christmas. And it was really depressing. It was really well written. It was a look into humanity that is a side of humanity that I hope I'm never a part of. It's a bummer. Don't pick this up if you aren't ready to feel depressed about the state of humans and just the like casual cruelty that humans can give out to people that they supposedly love. I gave it 3 stars. It is really well written. It is really poignant. It is all of those things, but I just like was not mentally prepared to feel what I felt while reading this book. The last book that I finished this month was Nimona by Noelle Stevenson, and this was such a pleasant surprise after reading the corrections. This was so sweet. It's about a hero and a villain, and the villain sidekick Nimona. It's basically another look into what does it mean to be a hero, what does it mean to be a villain, what do those labels really mean, what does it mean to be a monster, and the relationship between these two as well as these two. So cute and sweet and just fun. It says full of humor and heart, and that's like completely what it was. I gave it 5 stars. The only criticism that I had, which is so nitpicky and stupid, is that the text was really small. I had to read it, like, I have really bad eyesight, so I had to read it like this. But other than that, I loved it. I loved it a lot, and I definitely want to read more by Noelle Stevenson. I think this was her debut. I don't know. A perfect ending to the month and put me in a better mental spot and believe in humanity again. So I gave this 5 stars. So this is just a portion of what I read in the month of September. It was a strangely all over the place month. Some new favorites, some new least favorites. Please let me know if you disagree with any of my opinions. I love talking about books. That's why I'm on book 2. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!